Morning folks, morning James, morning Stephen, morning James again, Lenny, Jacqueline, Harry, Stuart, Austin, Robert, Gemma, Lorraine, Scott, Tricia, Lynn, hi Sarah. Not jobs. Morning Brian, morning Anne, Ange, Rosalind, Tammy, Adele, Margaret, Lynn. Right, that's more than 100 on board, so let's get this broadcast underway. It's Indytruck Davy, out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is Scorchio, 16 degrees. Going to be a beautiful day, folks. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather forecast like where you are, look out your own bloody windy. Alright, so let's get the review of the weekend's news underway. Okay, and Friday, we'll start with Friday the 17th of June, and it started with one main headline in the rags. Inflation to hit 11% according to the Bank of England. So what did the economic illiterates at the Bank of England do about it? They rose interest rates, of course, taking money out of people's pockets and assisting in the contraction of the economy, because as we all know, if you have a market economy, Davy says this earlier again, if you've got a market economy and the people don't have money to spend into that market, then the market shrinks. Okay, so the Bank of England is contributing to the problem rather than trying to fix the problem. It would appear that we have a government in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers and its institute trying desperately to destroy the UK economy. Okay, right, moving on. Friday, and the Chancellor or Chancellor of the Exchequer tells the UK public the Treasury won't be helping with the cost of living crisis anytime soon with tax cuts. Sunak says no tax cuts for 2 years, which is very convenient for the Tory party because that's when the next GE is supposed to be. But the way things are going at the moment, there'll probably be a general election before Christmas. Right, moving on. Also, Friday, food price inflation hits 15%. This is a direct effect of Brexit and shortages in the labour market and the supply chain breakdown. Once again, food is rotting in the fields and there's no one to pick it. So there's less food in the market, which means commodity prices rise, which means food prices are going up. So that's where your food price inflation comes from. Now, according to the stats that have been bandied about, your weekly shop is going up by 15%, and your annual cost of feeding yourself and your family goes up by 500 quid. Not great. So we've got rising energy costs, rising fuel costs, rising food prices. We've got the Bank of England taking money out of people's pockets and the Chancellor refusing to help. What the hell is going on? Alright, so Brexit, as I spoke about all the years ago, when I did the food security video, Brexit has put the food security of the United Kingdom at risk. The up-and-coming trade war with the EU will see shortages in the supermarkets as we get sanctioned from the EU and the US. So things are not looking good, folks. People are going to die. And I can't emphasise that enough. People will die. Right, but don't say people weren't warned about this. I was talking about this before the Brexit vote. Right, moving on. Friday and down that road, after Lord Gates quits as Bojo's advisor on standards in public life and as his interpreter of the ministerial code, Bojo is thinking about just scrapping the position altogether. So there'll be nobody there to ensure that Bojo and his criminal cabal actually sticks to the standards that are expected of politicians of those positions in public life. So, as well as Bojo being his own judge and jury now, it would appear that he's just going to scrap the standards, the ethics position. or the position of somebody in the ethics office to make sure they all bloody well behave themselves, alright? Okay, moving on Friday. And Bojo ditches a Northern Powerhouse conference for a visit to Ukraine. Bojo flies into Ukraine on Friday, the day after the French President and the German Chancellor popped up in Kiev to announce that the Ukraine's candidacy to join the European Union had been accepted. The reasons for Bojo's trip isn't quite clear, but while he's there, he announces UK forces will train Ukrainian troops. Bojo tells the Ukrainian press pack and the wider world that the wider world must stand behind Ukraine in this conflict. Alright, and he uses terms like against the Russian aggressors and things like that. Okay, so it's not quite clear why Bojo went to Ukraine. Maybe he went over there to try and convince the Ukrainians not to apply to join the EU. After all, Brexit's Bojo's baby. But the only place Bojo can go where anybody's going to actually cheer for him these days is war-torn Ukraine. The problems here at home are mounting, and civil unrest could well be on the way. Right, also Friday, the top two reps in the other cheek of the establishment arse return their questionnaires to Durham police. Now we wait to see if Stammer and Rayner get fined. If they do, then the Labour Party would be rudderless for a while. Who would take over the Labour Party? Who cares? It'll just be another stuffed shirt. Another one of the stuffed shirts that represent that cheek of the red cheek of the establishment arse down that road, alright? Now moving on Friday, it's announced that Dominic Raab will introduce the British Bill of Rights to the Commons this week. Alright, the bill is to replace the Human Rights Act. The new British Bill of Rights will see asylum seekers lose their rights to cover from the Human Rights Act Section 8, the right to family life, making it easier to deport them to Rwanda. Right, the full horrors of the British Bill of Rights will become clearer when the bill hits the floor of the House and Thieves and Carpetbaggers this week, and Davy will be looking on intensely to see which of our rights will be getting stripped away from us by the British Bill of Rights down there in that House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, alright? Right, let's move on to Saturday and see what we've got to cover for Saturday, because Davy's short of time. Right, moving on Saturday. Saturday started with the news that Bojo the Clown and Prince Big Ears are off to Rwanda for a meeting of the Commonwealth Council. As expected, it will be an awkward trip for Big Ears, as he had criticised the UK government over its policy of sending asylum seekers to Rwanda. Anywho, the Rwandan policy is just red meat to the Tory racist backbenchers and to the right-wing nut jobs down that road, as the policy can only see 500 migrants sent to Rwanda, as they're calling them, asylum seekers we call them, but 28,000 asylum seekers rocked up on the east coast of England last year via small boats. So 500 of them going to Rwanda is just a drop in the ocean, and it's ripping the pish. This is populist policy, and it's all about keeping Bojo in his job. Shipping people to Rwanda was never ever going to be the answer to the problem. And what they really need to do is sit down with the French and work out how they're going to stop these boats getting in the water in the first place. 500 people to Rwanda, it cost 120 million quid. Bang! What a rubbish. Right, moving on Saturday, and it's reported that once again food is rotting in the fields. Thanks to Brexit and the end of freedom of movement. One farmer, Andy Allen, says he has lost 50,000 quid's worth of asparagus because he couldn't get the staff to harvest it. This, folks, is what's driving food inflation. We've got a shortage of butchers, we've got a shortage of food pickers, we've got farmers planting less because they don't want to see it rotting in the fields. So there you have it. This one farmer, 50 grand down because he's lost his asparagus crop because there's nobody to pick it. Right, moving on Saturday, and back here in Scotland, Constitutional Minister Angus Robertson tells the Pravda that Scotland will have its referendum and it will be legal. The Pravda are still pushing you need Westminster's consent push. That's what the Pravda's still pushing. Alright, Mr Robertson tells the Pravda, watch this space as the First Minister will be setting out the legal way that Scotland's Indy 2 will be done if a Section 30 is refused. Alright, moving on. Saturday, and the cuckoos in the nest are calling for Ian Blackford to be sacked as the party's leader at the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers over his support of SNP MP Patrick Grady, who had been suspended for 2 days from the House for sexually harassing a junior member of staff. Now, the calls come after the Times, the Daily Mail says it's got a recording of Mr Blackford telling the MPs to support Mr Brady. So we'll see where that one goes. Okay. Right. Moving on. Saturday, it's been reported that Scotland is seeing a resurgence of COVID cases. It's believed that the Omicron variants B4 and B5 are to blame and are the drivers of this increase in COVID cases. There were 11,126 new cases last week, 748 people are in hospital, 40 of which are in intensive care, and according to the Office for National Statistics, 1 in 30 Scots have the virus, and that includes Scotland's clinical advisor Professor Jason Leach, who announces on Saturday that he's caught COVID. Alright, now according to the Office for National Statistics, 3.4% of the population currently have COVID, or 175,000 Scots. So be careful while you're out there. Okay, right, let's move on to Sunday. Sunday starts with trains and the strikes, the up-and-coming strikes. Right, Scottish Hospitality Industry says the strikes will be a disaster for their industry. They're going to be more than a disaster for their industry. It's going to be a disaster right across the board. But, you know, Transport Secretary Grant Sharp down that road says that the rail strikes are no his problem. The statement comes as the RMT asked for a meeting with Sharp. Grant Sharp said the RMT asking for a meeting was a stunt and that they need to negotiate with Network Rail and the train operators. So there we go. The government says no our problem, don't want to get involved, bugger off. Alright, moving on. Sunday. And the Brexit NI protocol row continues. Michael Martins, the Irish PM, says the move to scrap parts of the protocol would inflict economic vandalism on Northern Ireland's economy. Now, Davy says the crooks and the criminal cabal know that. The reason they have to drag Northern Ireland down is because the protocols have seen Northern Ireland booming, and it's become a bloody embarrassment to the Brexiteers. So Northern Ireland has to have its access to the single market wrecked as well. And they have its economy hamstrung the way that Scotland's economy has been hamstrung. Remember, folks, the NI deal is the deal that Nicola Sturgeon proposed for Scotland in the paper Scotland's Place in Europe. The one that Theresa May fecked right in the bin without even looking at it. Outrageous. Right, moving on. Sunday, and Angus Robertson's in the TV studios of the Pravda here in Scotland and is being pushed in what the Scottish, the SNP Green government will do if Westminster refuses a Section 30 order. Angus tells a reporter that Westminster should issue a Section 30 order, and he quotes me, Ruthie Tank Commander, on the conditions that have to be met for a Section 30 order to be issued. According to me, Ruthie Tank Commander, then the parties in that Parliament who want the referendum must have the referendum in their manifestos, and they must win the majority. Well, tick, tick, done. So when the First Minister asks for a Section 30 order, it should be forthcoming. But if it's no, we'll just quote Geoffrey Cox, will we? We'll just make it quite clear. The UK is constituted by a treaty, and no sovereign nation can be held in a treaty against its will, especially if the conditions of that treaty are no longer suitable for that country or that partner in the treaty. And that happens to be the case with the Treaty of Union. So we don't need Westminster's permission to withdraw from the Treaty of Union. All we have today is hold some sort of plebiscite to make it happen. In this case, it's going to be a referendum. It will be a legal referendum because the Referendum Scotland Act 2019 passed into law in January 2020. So referenda are legal in Scotland. The paperwork which is going through the Parliament shortly is just to determine the type of referendum. Okay, so Angus Robertson tells the Pravda, listen, we're having this referendum, get it round, geez. Right, anyway, there's a Davy says, stick your section 30 where the sun doesn't shine. We don't want it, we don't need it, bugger off. And as to the claims of Dougie Ross and anybody else who says they would boycott any referendum held without Westminster's permission, well, go ahead. Let's hope Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems all boycott it, because it's going to be an absolute walk in the park, isn't it? Because we don't negate elections or referenda because some idiot can't be arsed gone to the polling station to exercise their franchise. They will have had a franchise. The fact that they don't exercise a franchise is their problem. Okie dokie. So that's the stories I pulled out for the weekend, folks. I know I've motored through this because Sarah's going to go to her work shortly. And as you know, I generally, all the real news was on Friday. Saturday and Sunday's just talking. You know, that's all it is. It's all opinion pieces of the weekend. Right, let's move on to this morning and see what Scotland's rags have got to say the day. Right, Scotland's paper. Summer of strikes and network derailed. Right, the Scotsman goes on. SNP, Tories are urging rail strike for culture war. Right, so according to the SNP, the strikes are all part of the culture war. Bus operators warn it cannot fill the gap in services ahead of action this week. Alright, so there you go. No trains and not enough buses to cover it. The Metro goes on. Network derailed. Talks today to avert biggest rail shutdown in 30 years. Right, and this is between the RMT and Network Rail, of course. Right, the Times has teachers and doctors threatened to join strikes. Well, it's bound to happen, isn't it? With inflation running at 11%, anything less than an 11% pay rise, and it's a bloody pay cut. So we are going to see a summer and probably into the winter of unrest, especially here in Scotland, because the Scottish government's got a fixed budget. So they don't have enough to spread around. It's only thin gruel that's left once we pay for things like NHS and education and things like that. So there you have it. Right, the Daily Telegraph has rail union threatens to strike for 6 months. Looks there's general strikes coming. And this is where we get the idea that there might well be a bloody election, because general strikes will bring Johnson to his knees. Johnson hails Commonwealth as boost to economy. The Commonwealth don't want to trade with little England or the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers. The Commonwealth countries can see that England is a bad faith actor. The Scottish loony rag, the Express, goes on. Voters won't forgive rail strike betrayal. So there you go. Apparently the voters, for some reason, have got a say in the rail strikes. What's it got to do with the voters? This is between the members of the RMT and Network Rail and the train service providers. The Eye has rail strikes to carry on until the autumn. The Herald has COVID guidance may have denied the elderly access to ventilators. And that'll be this do not resuscitate carry on was grown at the height of the pandemic. The Record has, we need space to grieve for our babies. Campaigners demand SNP stand by promise of separate maternity units for miscarriages mums. Well, I'm afraid policies like that will have to be sidelined as the money just not as plentiful as what it was. And what money there has been, it doesn't go as far because of inflation. Now the other loony right-wing rag, the Daily Mail has, victims' fury over SNP sex pest betrayal. Listen, the Tories have got people up in court for rape and things like that. All Brady does was sexually harassing a junior member of staff. I don't think it got much further than that. And Grady's got a 2-day suspension. That's his punishment. You know, but here we have Tories denying, Tories demanding, action or sexual misconduct in SNP MP. They've had MPs standing because of fiddled wee boys. The man for Romford, the news, gone up in court for rape, for Christ's sake. Wow. And the National has crowdfunder move to boost secret union polls fight. Shepherd seeks cash to hire top lawyer to take on UK big shot QC. And this is of these polls that they've been ordered to release. You know, the polling on Scottish independence, which the UK government have been carrying out using public money, but refused to put their polls into the public realm. So Tommy Shepherd's been fighting with him for long and weary to try and get this information released. After all, we did pay for it. It should be in the public realm. Right, let's see what we've got in the Star this morning, shall we? And the Star has desperate times, skint Brits driven to crime, soaring costs spark wave of pilfering at the pumps. So people are filling their motors up and driving away with no paying. They're going to court and it's costing 110 quid to fill their tank. They're getting 50 quid fines in the court, so they're actually 60 quid up. So follow Davy for more motoring tips. Absolutely brilliant, folks. That's a blinder. Yeah, people are stealing it and going to pay £50 fines rather than paying 100 quid at the pumps. Absolutely mental stuff. Right, so there you have it. Soaring cost sparks weave for pilfering at the pumps. Unbelievable. But it was bound to happen. Shoplifting's going to go through the roof. Stealing petrol's going to go through the roof. People do what people need today to get what they need, to feed their families, heat their homes, whatever. Don't be surprised if you look out at the lights in your street and see wires running from people's houses to the lights in the street, to the hijack electricity they can't afford to pay. Or if you live in a building like mine, you see them nipping out and hooking up to the close light. Hey, the UK is a disaster. The quicker we get out it, the better. Right, that's what I've got for you today, folks. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you found it informative. I hope you enjoyed the stories I picked out to talk about. Right, so remember, folks, partisan politics in your pockets, eyes in your prize. Learn how you gonies get out there and win hearts and minds, cause the game's afoot. Now, support the independent media, support independent vloggers and bloggers, support Broadcasting Scotland, Caledon Media, Independence Live, Indie Live Radio. You know the folks. If they've got a crowdfunder going and you've got a couple of shekels to spare, but we are in a campaign, we need these people. So if you've got a couple of shekels, throw them in a pot, alright? Bannockburn this Saturday, folks. I hope we see you there. I'll mention it more as we go through the week, okay? A health message and COVID's on the rise again. Follow the last two bits of guidance that's out there. Face coverings in enclosed public spaces, clean hands and surfaces regularly. If you're not feeling well, mask up and social distance. And if you're still testing, please submit your tests to NHS Scotland so that we can keep an eye on how much of this is in the community. Okay, folks, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what I do, share it around, please, folks, because as you know, me and my partner in crime, or my partners in crime, we're not interested in your money. Have a nice day. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again.